There's a small neighborhood in the city of St. Louis where on a short walk you can find beautiful architecture, unique art, hand-planted trees and greenery, and a community which shares and cares for its members, all in the same place. Between Forest Park and the Del Mar Loop is Skinker de Bolivar, a lively neighborhood which was not always the way it is now. The city of St. Louis's population peaked in the 1950s at around 850,000 people, and it has decreased since then by almost 70% as people move out of the city and into the suburbs. The city suffered most during the 60s and 70s, in which many of its neighborhoods fell into decline. Some never recovered, but some did, one of which being Skinker de Bolivar. But this didn't just happen from luck. The people of Skinker de Bolivar worked hard to make it happen. In a survey conducted in 1999 by the Skinker de Bolivar Community Council, the three most important parts of the neighborhood's stabilization and development were community events, community engagement, and strong leaders. Today, those same values still define Skinker de Bolivar and are only possible with the efforts of those who pour themselves into the community. This is the story of one such effort and how service, care, and leadership continue to allow Skinker de Bolivar to thrive.
So my name is Andy Cross, and I'm living in the Skinker de Bolivar neighborhood. I grew up on the 6100 block of Kingsbury. When I was a kid, my brothers and sisters and I all walked to St. Roch School, and in high school I walked to CPC. I went to Washington U, which is also walking distance. So a lot of kids need to get away when they go to college, but for me, I was really happy here. I got along with my parents well and my family well, and I love the neighborhood because this neighborhood pretty much has everything we need. So many things that are easily accessible. One of my favorite jobs is a summer job that I have that's also walking distance, although I ride my bike there to the Muni. I've been working at the Muni since my first college summer. I started at the Muni in 1982, and I really wanted to paint backstage. And I sold concessions just to get backstage to be able to see what was going on. And I sold concessions for 2 years, and on the third year, they needed another shop person. They were moving everybody up one notch on the ladder. And so I took the job of paint boy. He said, show up at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. I got in at the bottom rung and stayed there, and I'm still working there all these years later. I've been painting scenery since 1984. A few years ago, I think 2018, I knew the 100th season was coming up, and there were posters from all the 10th anniversaries backstage at the Muni, and I really wanted to do one of those, but I wanted to make mine the way I draw things. I like to draw in detail, and I like to tell a story with the detail. So I proposed this to Denny Reagan, the executive director at the Muni, and it went over really well. It was a lot of work, but they loved it, and I loved it too. I've got so many details. There's stories all over in here. So when I draw in pen and ink. I like to draw really small details, real fine stuff. This one is stippling, where it's just a lot of dots put together, and when you put them together closely, they become an image. I like to draw nature and trees. I love to be outside. That's why I plant so many trees in the neighborhood. I just really enjoy being in nature and improving the nature in our neighborhood with trees and indigenous plants, things that come from Missouri and benefit the wildlife. And then by contrast, when I paint these classic cars, and they're not so natural, but I explore a lot of color. I really enjoy painting with chrome, and I like bright, bold colors. I learned from painting signs how to make good, crisp, clean lines. I painted 4-foot by 8-foot paintings of the cars. This airplane, the Blue Angel jet. When we were younger still, we used to hear the Phantom jets fly over the city and leave sonic booms. Those planes were made by McDonnell Douglas in St. Louis. Eventually that company became Boeing. When you look at my classic cars, you can be passing by really quickly and still take them in and see what they are. That would be part of the speed, but then the reflection is when you stop and take a look at it, because the reflection of the chrome is one kind of reflection, and the reflection of stopping to look at the work is another kind. So one of the artworks that was a good use of my talent was on the barricades that divide the 6,100 streets and the 6,000 streets along Rosedale. There are three corners that are attached by barricades. They were put up, it was to stop cars from tearing through the neighborhood. And the barricades, when we bought our house on the corner of McPherson and Rosedale, the barricade posts in chains that would keep the cars from driving over the barricade. They were bent and crooked and they looked horrible. Then I thought about that and said, maybe I can make that look better. So I proposed to the Skinker-Bolivar Community Council. I said, if I make wooden boxes to cover those posts, and where the chains come in, it won't matter that the chains are different heights because the boxes will be uniform. So I did that, and that was the lead-in to what I think became an even better idea, or more aesthetic anyway. The posts really cleaned up the look of those barricades because they were so junky. And then I built a big wooden planter. The first one went on McPherson, and then I built one on Kingsbury. And the planter is built entirely of reclaimed materials. The same with the post covers. It's all lumber that I salvaged. So no trees were sacrificed. I was able to save something and make something more beautiful out of stuff that was garbage. But I think it makes such an impact on that corner. It's subtle, but the difference between what it was and what it is now, yeah, that's a good example. And the reclaimed materials, I'm proud of that because I'm able to, again, take garbage and make art out of it. I also make a lot of signs for our neighborhood events. And I get to use my artistic talent to make wooden signs that people will notice. If you get a printed banner, sometimes it doesn't grab your attention as much as a painted sign. The same with the flyers that I make. I do a lot of hand-drawn artwork to catch your attention, like the food drive flyers. They look very different than other flyers because it's hand-lettered. And that's a way of using my artistic talents that I got to make the neighborhood a little more cohesive. Sometimes the neighborhood is a little bit of like a canvas for my artistic efforts because there are things that were broken or messy or unattractive, like the barricades. And with a little TLC and a lot of elbow grease, I was able to turn them into attractive barricades. They're all opportunities to take something that was formerly unattractive and make it look good. Examples of beauty that are in our neighborhood, and there's a lot of different kinds of beauty. One of the things I love are the tall trees we have in our neighborhood. You might have to tend them, cut the branches. There's a lot of work to keep the trees healthy and keep them alive. We get some serious droughts, and I water them by hand, carry the water to them. But I think, we've got a great neighborhood for trees, and we've got some really nice gardens in front yards and side yards and backyards, and we even have neighbors that make their alley look absolutely gorgeous with gardens. But then there's the other kind of beauty of the neighbors that work with each other and work together. We had times when there were drug gangs in the neighborhood, and the neighbors pulled together to figure out what do we do, and look out for each other and protect each other. There's a crime wave, the word gets out and people talk about things, and when people need help, there's somebody there. There's a lot of folks that can help each other. When we do a food drive, people contribute. When we have neighborhood concerts, hundreds of people will show up and just hang out. They'll talk to each other, they just want to be with each other. For all the neighbors, one of our proudest and happiest moments is when we see the neighbors get together at the concerts. Or at Porch Fest, we have a lot of participation from neighbors. There's some really nice community spirit there, and it's also open to really anybody in the city who wants to come. And that's also fun to have people from outside our neighborhood come in and just enjoy the neighborhood. When our neighbors are at Four Corners, they're all together, and that is something I really enjoy.
One of the things I love is how much everybody knows their neighbors, helps their neighbors, socializes with their neighbors. It's really the people that make this place the best neighborhood to me in the city of St. Louis.
The neighbors worked really hard to save the neighborhood, basically keep this gem intact.
Again, my family moved here in the late 60s. A lot of houses needed a lot of work, and it was just sort of a different time.
We were always uncomfortable on one of the 6,000 block of Kingsbury because there were empty houses there. And where the McPherson Community Garden is now, that lot was a vacant lot for 30 years. I don't think I'd ever been on that block. And eventually, there are no boarded up buildings now.
So another interesting thing about this neighborhood is there are a bunch of us who grew up here, but so many of us have come back to raise our families here. For me, I think it instilled a sense of giving back, and I think it's because our parents were sort of pioneers in helping make things happen in the neighborhood.
It was people like my parents and our neighbors and friends who stuck it out and worked together and kept things together and advertised the neighborhood and built up a great place to live. You can't help but have good neighbors as role models, because we had some really good parents on our block when we were kids. All these folks that were involved working together to save a neighborhood.
There were volunteer women in the neighborhood. My mom was one. They led like a group of women who were helping recruit people or helping advertise apartments for rent and houses for sale and getting people to move here because it wasn't being done by people who should do it.
Well, really, the people of the neighborhood are the gems. They're the teachers. They're the people we share with. I've worked with so many different volunteers, and I guess we're always learning. When we work together, we share and we learn stuff from each other, and that's a lot of fun.
It's all the people in this community who get together and make these things happen, and Andy Cross is involved in all of them. So I could call Andy and he would be here in 5 minutes if I ever needed anything. I mean, he's just always been someone I've always known. So, I grew up with him, and Andy and I had lived across the street growing up, and then I bought a house 2 doors from Andy, so then we were like raising our kids together when we had grown up together. So he's always been part of my life. I think you can't find anything in this neighborhood that has happened that Andy Cross hasn't had a part in, and most of it a really big part. The neighborhood playground at Four Corners, Winter Market. He's been part of that from the beginning. If it weren't for Andy, there would be no garden tour. There would be no community gardens without Andy.
The McPherson Garden is like an artwork. It takes a lot of effort. It takes some communication to get my gardeners together. But when they do get together, they're sharing left and right. Everybody has different knowledge and different experience and different plans. It's kind of really nice to be the vehicle that says, hey, you got extra stuff and you need stuff. You need stuff and they got extra stuff. You just put those two people together and community happens.
Andy's on everything all the time. He's just always helping, because that's just Andy. Like, if he knows something needs to be done, Andy's there.
Well, one thing that's really pretty funny, I guess, is that constantly people that I don't recognize say, hey, Andy. And I think a lot of people know me in the neighborhood.
Everybody knows Andy. He's this amazingly talented artist who does all these incredible things. How lucky are we that we know him and get to go to his art shows. He also just does really nice things, like sometimes if he was like walking by, like I'd come out in the morning and there would be some amazing Andy Cross drawing in the chalk because we had left chalk out, and it would just be like to make our day. Like, he just is so kind, and you'll never find anyone say a bad thing about him.
I don't think myself is important, but the time that I give is helpful.
Andy doesn't want attention. Andy doesn't do it for the glory. He's never been like that. He leads by example, but he doesn't do it to be the leader. He just does what needs to be done and kind of inspires everybody else.
I don't feel like I'm important. I feel like the opportunities to do things for the neighborhood are what's important to me. But I don't feel like it's me that's important. I think it's the events or the structures, the buildings, the playground, the planters. There are things in the neighborhood that I'll fight real hard to keep alive, to keep going.
Andy's efforts, whether it be his art, his service, or his quiet presence as a neighbor to all, have revealed the beauty in our neighborhood. The beauty not only seen in the trees and the gardens, but in the people and their work. Andy inspires the community to do the same. People like Andy carry on a legacy of neighbors who decades ago chose not to give up on Skinker de Bolivar, and instead turned it around for the better. Andy didn't paint that picture on his own, but in every small gesture, he reflects it, adds to it, and passes it on to others, reminding us that a neighborhood is not just a place to live, but a community that should feel like home.